highs and lows of great victories and agonizing defeats. We're going to get into this week's game, the Holy War against Notre Dame. We're going to start looking at factors that could go into this game, and starting with the quarterback position. You're going to hear my thoughts about Phil Jurkovec versus Emmett Morehead. All of this and more on today's Locked On BC.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On BC. I am Jay Black. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to give my thoughts and prayers and just my thoughts for all the families and victims of the tragedy at UVA. Just horrible news coming out of that program and that campus. And, three bright young men lost their lives senselessly on Monday. And just wanted to give my thoughts and just tell, I'm just one podcaster, but just thinking about them as we get into this week. But, we're going to change gears here a little bit. We'll talk a little bit about BC football. All right. So Boston College football this week, they're going to face off against Notre Dame. It's a storied rivalry. Of course, everyone knows the story of Boston College and Notre Dame, all the big wins, the David Gordon kick and Tony Gonzalez touchdown and all that. But for the longest time now, and Notre Dame, I think, has like an 8-game win streak against BC. And you have to go back to the early 2010s. It was Jimmy Clausen's year, I think it was, to see BC beating Notre Dame. Now, heading into this game, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a change. The opening Vegas line in this for BC and Notre Dame is 19.5. 19.5. So it's about the same as what it was for NC State, which again, it's a road against a ranked opponent. It makes sense. But when you look at the teams, you could see BC potentially trying to keep this one close. Notre Dame last weekend against Navy, a team that I think is like 2-7 too, only won 35-32 and barely held on to that win. So could it be closer than 19 points? I'm not ready to pick BC to upset them in this game, but definitely could be. But the big question every week is going to be who's going to be the starting quarterback. I get asked by every podcaster that I talk to, every opposing writer that asked me who's going to be the starter. And it's convoluted, but I mean, you can read between the lines, right? So Jeff Hafley on Saturday, I think it was Saturday or Sunday, talked about talked about Jurkovec and mentioned that Jurkovec he's in concussion protocol. He has a knee injury. He has a rib injury and a back injury, which again makes sense from the amount of times he got hit in those first 6 or 7 games. So he did, Hafley continually says that if Jurkovec is ready, he's going to be his guy. He didn't say that this week, but he has said that before. This is the game that, if Jurkovec is healthy, you have to wonder if he's going to get the start because you want to see Emmett Morehead. Believe me, my point of this is that I want Emmett Morehead out there all game long. I think he should be the starter. But I understand if Jurkovec is healthy, that's going to make a really, really tough decision for Jeff Hafley. It's going to be a really tough decision because this is a game that Jurkovec has probably had circled on his calendar for 2 years now. Going back to South Bend, going back to where he started is an opportunity that I'm sure he's been dying for. And that's going to be really tough. But you know what? This is Jeff Hafley's job. He's not there to be giving out participation awards. He's not there to get, make things easy. He's going to try to do what's best for his players. But right now, the best thing for his team, and that's what he's coaching for. He's not coaching Phil Jurkovec. He's coaching a team that includes Phil Jurkovec, is to start Emmett Morehead. And I think the injuries and giving that operation that you remember the game operation, the operation board full of injuries is probably his way of getting out of this, I think. But Emmett Morehead has to start. He has to start. And I'm sure he is. On Tuesday, no one asked him about whether, Morehead was getting first team's reps, but I'm sure he was. And all it takes, they get 2 practices, a walkthrough, and then it's the game. If Jurkovec misses first practice, right, that means he gets 1 practice and a walkthrough, and he's missed the last 2 games. No, Emmett Morehead's got to start. Emmett Morehead has got to start. And for 2 reasons. I'll give you 2 reasons why Morehead should be the starter. First of all, as folks, you have all said it over and over again, and I totally agree with you. He's the future of this program. If I were looking at my crystal ball, Phil Jurkovec is not going to be on this program next year. He's done. He's either going to go transfer or move on to, trying to get into the NFL, whatever he chooses to do. Emmett Morehead will most likely be the starter next year. He needs these reps. You saw him grow against and he has earned it. He has earned it. Through the first 2 starts, he has 7 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Get him out there and get him playing, because he is also going to give you the best chance to win. I had to see it to believe it, but Morehead's ability to get rid of the ball quickly is much more in line on getting this offense going. Now, BC's offensive line still looked putrid with him out there. He got sacked 5 times. He's getting all over the place, right? And then NC State defense. Notre Dame has a good defense too. They're going to hit him too. But if you put Phil Jurkovec back there, especially without him practicing all that much, he's going to get killed. He just can't get rid of the ball fast enough. Morehead at least gives you a chance there. So on Saturday, I think it's not even really a discussion at this point, but Emmett Morehead is going to be your starter. He is going to be the guy to go to against Notre Dame and give you that best chance to win. And I'm telling you, folks, right now, right? If BC wins this game, when we talking about the whole tenor of this offseason is going to change. If you get, and I'm not going to get ahead of myself, because as I said, I don't think BC has a chance of, I don't think they're going to win this game, but I think that's going to be it's going to be some really interesting conversations this offseason. Robbie says, start Morehead. This isn't a discussion at this point. Robbie, you may say that it's not a discussion at this point, but Hafley has made it clear that it is a discussion at this point. So I'm not bringing this up because it's me. I'm telling you that Jeff Hafley has brought this up. So I am just playing devil's advocate to what Hafley has brought up. He may be wrong. He may be right, but that's where he's at. Okay. And I get you. I agree with you. I think it should be Morehead. It really shouldn't be a discussion point, but I'm telling you where the coaching staff's at. Now, in a moment, I'll give you some more bad news about BC football. So we'll get into a major issue heading into Saturday that you're going to want to know about that came out of today's press conference. Now, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people for your team faster and for free. Now, all you have to do is head on over to LinkedIn, add your job, and put the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. They have simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the quality candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This is Locked On BC. AJ Black here. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It takes 10 seconds. If you want to help this podcast, this is the easiest way to do it. It takes 10 seconds. It's totally free. Even if you don't think you have a YouTube account, if you have Gmail, you have a YouTube account. And it just takes you 10 seconds to do that. Join, say, hey, AJ, I subscribed. It helps the podcast out tremendously when you do things like this. I'm telling you right now. Now, our next segment, we'll get to Zay in a second. On Tuesday, Jeff Hafley had his weekly sit-down talks. It's not really sit-down, stand-up talk and media discussion with the press corps about this upcoming game against Notre Dame. Now, things, he talked about UVA. He talked about Zay. And how dynamic he is and how he's doing things the right way. We'll get to Zay Flowers but he had a throwaway line that no one really asked more about, and I get it because he's not going to tell you, but it really concerned me what he brought up. And he was talking about, I think it was the offensive line. And Rich Thompson from the Herald was joking, oh, it's your third straight game with the same offensive line. He said, well, we've got guys with high fevers right now throughout the team that are missing practice. We hope to get them back soon. And ears went, what? This is big news because it's early in the week, so hopefully things will be okay. BC has multiple offensive linemen, which is kind of what he insinuated, and other players throughout the team, which he talks about later, but he never mentions who it is. That is a big issue because we saw in 2021 how much an illness can devastate a BC team, especially. Remember that Wake Forest game last year, the game that BC got blasted by the Demon Deacons. After the game, we found out like half the team had the flu. And they were playing, sick as dogs. They're throwing up. It was a big mess, right? If BC is playing with either sick or recovering from being sick and not 100% guys against a ranked physical Notre Dame team, that is a big problem. That is a very big problem because, as I said, Wake Forest beat you up physically in that game, and Wake Forest is not a very physical team. Notre Dame is. BC's secondary, if they're barfing if they're having trouble, staying healthy, and they're not 100%, how are they going to tackle Michael Meyer? How are they going to stop those physical running backs? This is worrisome. And again, I'm not there to how sick they are. I'm going off of what Jeff Hafley said, which is these guys have high fevers and they're missing practice. That is BC is already, the Walking Dead out there in terms of how injured they are, how little that they have in terms of their, depth, because they're just banged up everywhere. They can ill afford to have, a whole unit throwing up or sick or whatever. They got to be healthy. I said in the first segment that I was considering taking BC, with the points in this game, because I think that they could be able to surprise some folks. Now, we're going to know, because the coaching staff is going to keep this private, how widespread whatever this illness is. It could be 5 guys. If it's 5 guys and it's 2 on the 2 deep, it's not a non-factor, but we don't know that. And Jeff is never going to tell us that. But the flu and bugs, they go around locker rooms real fast because these guys are around each other. They're working out, eating together. They're living together. They're, in the locker rooms together at close proximity. It can go through pretty quick. I was at Texas A&M last week, I think, got hammered with this. If BC has a good chunk of players that are ill or getting over, I have some major concerns heading into this game. And I'm not sure if BC's able to stay with that. Okay? If they'll be able to stay with Notre Dame. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe Hafley will give an update on Wednesday. He usually gives an update on things on Wednesday. And I'm going to try to jump in on that call. I haven't been able to get to some, but I think I'll be able to get to that one, and I'll ask him about it and get some updates on that. Now, in our final segment, I want to continue with the positivity here and look at Zay Flowers and ask the question, is he a top 10 player in BC football history? I'll get into that in just a moment. Now, BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You're going to get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it covered at betonline.net. If you want to get in on that action at 19 and a half, if you're thinking my discussion about the illness is something that you're thinking about, or you think BC's going to come out there and play like gangbusters, head over to BetOnline. They've got the fastest and easiest way to get in on your betting fix. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. This is AJ Black, Locked On BC, and we're going to wrap things up talking about one of the best players I've ever seen at Boston College. And like many guys that have gone through BC, he's been marred on some teams that just aren't good. And that is our wide receiver, Zay Flowers. Now, on Monday's episode where we had Mitch on, and yesterday we talked, I am going on record to say that he's the best wide receiver Boston College has ever had. And Mitch agreed with me. You know, we talked about his physicality. Well, obviously, in a different era, it's different than, you know, when Brian Brennan played or Kevin Challenger played or Richie Goodnow. It's different now. And he has a athleticism that is that is far exceeds anything that BC's ever had at wide receiver. Also, he's got the speed and he's got good hands. He's a good route runner. That being said, right? But this raises a great question that came up on the Eagle Insider board. Is Zay Flowers a top 10 player in BC history? And I'm not sure he is. I'm not sure. And here's my thoughts. When you're looking at the best players, you're looking at players that were dominant, because BC has had players that are dominant at their position. And so you go over the main positions, right? You already got at quarterback, you have Matt Ryan and Doug Flutie. Those guys are going to be higher. They brought BC to higher levels. They're going to be better than Zay. I'd also put AJ Dillon. I would put Andre Williams, a potential Heisman candidate, and AJ Dillon, who had an incredible career here. I'm going to put them ahead of him. Then, I mean, you can argue, and I'm not going to get into the details, at least 2 or 3 offensive linemen, at least 2 or 3. You could probably go 4 at this point at offensive line and come up with some guys that really were, whether it's Mark Colombo or Chris Snee or, you name it. They've had some really good offensive linemen here at Boston College. So then you're up to 7. Okay. Then I look at defensive, obviously you're going to put Luke Kuechly on there. You have to, right? Mike Ruth is another one. I mean, he had multiple awards that he won. Mark Herzlig, ACC Defender of the Year. So this is not to bash Zay, because Zay is the best wide receiver BC's ever had, but he's never been able to get, like, when you talked about in 2010, 2011, who's the best wide receiver in the country? 2011, it was Luke Kuechly, and no one else could argue with that. It was Luke Kuechly. And you had, 2007, Matt Ryan was a top 10 Heisman candidate. Doug Flutie won the Heisman. Andre Williams was a Heisman finalist. These are ones that you just can't argue. So I can't put Zay in my top 10. But for me, for guys that I've enjoyed watching, he's top 10 for me. Like every single game that Zay Flowers played, just like AJ Dillon, just like Andre Williams, and I'm sure Flutie fans could tell me all about the Flutie stuff. I was not around to watch that. Every game that Zay played, he could have made a huge play, or he made something that made you go, wow. And I could go through lists of all the plays that he made. I'm just thinking about, we were just talking about Wake Forest and that sick game last week. I go back to the catch that he made that got called back, where he juked and spun around the entire Wake Forest defense and waltzed into the end zone, because he has such unreal speed and ability to change directions that it made my jaw drop. And he did that again last week. He did it against NC State. That second touchdown, he had guys all over him, and somehow he just kind of just shifted his, and he was gone. So, yeah, he's not top 10. But, man, was Zay Flowers fun to watch. Man, we will be talking about how BC landed one of the best wide receivers in the country, one that stayed at Boston College, even though he got lots of money offers to leave BC because he wanted to finish his career here. You'll remember, I mean, watching him smile against NC State meant everything, because this guy has been bad. I mean, we went to that UConn game where he dropped that pass and he just looked devastated. To see the switch where all that hard work he's had this year, he goes out there, he beats NC State, a team that no one had beating. Again, he's just showing he's that underdog that can do things. Now, Hafley, in his press conference as well, said he said this all along, that if he could go to war, he would take Zay Flowers as his wide receiver over any wide receiver in the country. But he also said he's going to be a first-round draft pick, or one of the top wide receivers drafted, because people are going to fall in love with him at the combine. And I think Mitch has mentioned this too, that Zay he's going to have some crazy, test at those events. And we will probably be talking about first-round draft pick with Zay Flowers. Now, on tomorrow's show, we're going to continue our discussion about Notre Dame. Going to look at, what BC has to do to win this game. We'll get into all of that. And then on Friday, we'll have Mitch on to give our predictions. This is AJ Black. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for subscribing. If you are a subscriber to our YouTube channel, I want to thank you. We're marching on 1,000. Right now, we're at 615, and I'd love to continue to get closer. If you have not done so already, please do that. And hit me up on Twitter at AJBlack_BC. And we're going to talk more BC sports tomorrow. And I do this. We're right around 500 episodes, and I love doing this with you guys. So hopefully you enjoy it too. This is AJ Black. Have a great day. We'll see you again soon. Take care.